G'day everybody and welcome to the first ever video on our Microsoft Trainer community channel. This is the first video of some series of videos that we're going to call Azure RoundUp, and today we have Janhavi Anturkar who's going to be presenting with us on Azure Functions. So let me introduce myself as well. My name is George Spirakis. I am the Microsoft Technical Trainer community lead for Asia in the Microsoft Technical Trainer team here at Microsoft in Worldwide Learning. The idea of this particular channel is so that we can teach you lots of different educational topics or technical topics. Today is going to be an example of what that might be. So without further ado, Janhavi, I'm going to hand over to you so you can talk to us about functions.
Thank you, George, and thanks for having me here. Hello, everyone. My name is Janhavi Anturkar. I am an Azure Technical Trainer based in Melbourne, and I teach developer course and DevOps, and I also teach lots of security courses. So today I'm going to take you through Azure Functions, which falls under the serverless technology. So let me share my screen first, and here we go. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen, George.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, so let's talk about Azure Functions. Now we are going to start with the basics of what Azure Functions are, what does it mean by serverless, and then we'll get into some demos on how we can create Azure Functions and different types of functions that we can have, and we'll understand how the scaling and everything works for Azure Functions there. So let's start with the basics. So what are really Azure Functions? So Azure Functions, it's part of the serverless technology. So the very basic definition of Azure Function is that it allows you to have your code executed in response to some kind of an event. So something happened and you want to execute the code. So that's what you can do with this Azure Function. So here you can see on this slide, I have got this small code here, which is basically running based on an HTTP trigger. So there's going to be some HTTP request, which will be called to an endpoint. And once that HTTP request is triggered, there's this code that I have got here, which will be run, and then you get the output there. Okay, so simple code here, small code that I have written, and then it's going to run based on that HTTP request. Now you could run these codes on different types of triggers. So there can be, let's say, a schedule trigger, a timer-based one. So for example, if you want to run, let's say I want to run this particular SQL query at, let's say, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe at night at 3 a.m. or something. So you can do that, or there can be triggered based on the queue, like a message queue. There can be triggered based on blob, like if you have created a file and then you want to run some code, or maybe you added something in the Cosmos DB and then after that you want to run some code. So there are different templates available for you, which you can pick from, and then you can create this code, write this code, and then deploy, and then your function will run based on that particular event. So this Azure Functions falls under the serverless category. Okay, now serverless, what does it really mean? Are there any servers or no? How are they going to run? So let's first understand what are the basics of serverless. So what is really serverless? Now serverless, it's about an abstraction of your server. So first and foremost, when I publish that code that I showed you in the earlier slide, I'm not worried about how it will be hosted or how the maintenance will happen or what kind of patching I need to do or how to secure the servers or anything. That is all being done for you automatically by Azure. So all you are doing there is you are just deploying that code. You don't need to think about the servers and anything. So the resources to run your code, they are provisioned automatically for you on demand and at whatever scale that you might be requesting. Okay, so it will be dependent on the event. So number of events that you're getting, based on that, it will scale. So if you need more instances, it will create more instances. If you do not have more requests coming in and your requests sort of died down, then the instances will be removed as well. So that's what basically serverless means. And you are going to be billed for when your code is actually running. Okay, so if you did not have if you did have a serverless API and nobody called it during, let's say, 1 month, okay, then you wouldn't be charged for that 1 month. But next month, you're getting like request after request. And let's say that there are thousands of requests in that first week of your month. then you'll be charged for that week. And again, if there are no requests for the rest of the month, then that rest of the period, you're not going to be charged. So it's good in that way that whenever you have got this scale, when your scale increases, you just pay for it. If your scale dies down, then you don't have to pay for it. So that's what basically serverless means.
So if I have, so if I've got my code, I'm only really worried about having my code in my repository, and I can push my code out to Azure and have a function created, and I don't have to go and do anything specifically for it to scale or anything like that?
Yeah, so you don't really have to do anything for it to scale. It'll happen for you automatically. So it's like a magic. Okay, so automatically it's basically
Magical
happening.
functions?
Yeah, so your code, as and when there will be requests coming into your code, it'll check how many requests are there and is there any need to have another instance of the host. And we'll go into the details of what exactly happens behind the scene when that function is scaling. But you will be only, what you are doing there is you are just deploying your code, and rest of the things are taken care for automatically. Okay.
Right.
So that's what your serverless means. Now, let's first understand how do we create this function apps. Okay, now there are different options for you to create this function app. So you can do it from the portal like all the other Azure resources. Like you can just go to the portal and say, I want to create a function app and follow through the wizard. So that's one option. There's really good tooling available for function apps. So you could make use of Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code to create your functions, and then you can deploy it from there if you want. You can also make use of Azure Functions core tools. So these core tools, if you install that, you get an ability to create your functions locally, run your functions locally, test them out, and then deploy from command line. So this core tool is basically giving you that command line interface that you are going to have here, and then this command line interface will give you that ability to do everything from command line. Okay, so those are different options that we have got for creation. So let's start with first, which is Azure Portal. I'm going to create a function in Azure Portal, and then we'll go to the command line tool and Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code to see how we can create these functions.
So that's similar. That command line tool, would that, is that gonna, do I need to have Visual Studio Code, or is that something separate? Would it sit in my command line or in a PowerShell?
Yeah, so it's separate. You just have to install the command tools, the core tools by themselves, and then you can just do it from your command prompt or your PowerShell, whatever option you choose. So you don't have to have Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio for that. Obviously, when you are updating your code, you need some kind of a code editor. So it doesn't have to be Visual Studio Code or code. You could even use Notepad if you want, like for your code changes that you want to do, but that's not going to scale if you just go with the Notepad. So always good to have a good code editor tool, but you can use your preferred tool. It doesn't have to be Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code in there.
Cool.
Okay, so let's go to our portal. So here I am on my Azure portal and I have logged in, and I want to create a function app. Okay, so all I have to do is I can look here for the function app, and I can go in, and then here I already have some function apps. You can see that I've got these 3 function apps that I have got for the demo created, but we want to create a new one. So let's start with the new one first. So I want to go to create here, and we'll go through the wizard for creation. So here I have got this wizard to create. Now you have to have your resource group. So I'm going to create a new resource group here. So let's call it demo RG, and then give it a name. And then here I want to give function apps a name. So I want to make sure here that my function app name is unique. Okay, so this needs to be unique, because when you are creating your function app, what happens is that you have got this name, and then that will be appended with the Azure websites.net. So that becomes your URL. So that's the endpoint. If in case if you have got HTTP trigger, then that URL is part of that endpoint. Okay, so you want to make sure that this is unique across Azure. And when you enter the name, it will tell you if the name is already in use. If it is not, then it will give you this green tick here. If it is in use, then it will give you an error, and then you have to just say, okay, change the name, right? So that's your function app name. Now you have got different options to publish your code. You can publish the code, or you can use it a Docker container. So your code function apps might be running in a Docker container, and you can deploy from there as well. And we'll talk about the deployment options in detail later. So first we'll go with the code. Now this function apps, it supports different types of runtimes. So here we have to choose runtimes. Now you have got lots of different options here. Like you can go for .NET, you can go for Node.js, you can go for Python, you can go for Java, you have got PowerShell code as well, and you can have custom handlers. So you have got all these different types of options that you can make use of when you are creating or writing your functions. So I'm going to go here with .NET because I've been a .NET developer, so .NET's my favorite, so I'm going to go with that. And then for .NET, you have got .NET 3.1 version here, but if you were to choose other options, like let's say Node.js, now you have got two options, like you can go with 12 or 14 version. If you have got, let's say Java, then you have got Java 11 and Java 8 options there. So likewise, you will have different options. Now for .NET, we have got this 3.1 option, so I'm going to go with that. And you have to make sure you choose the region where you want to run your function app. So I'm going to go with Australia East here. And then comes the hosting. Now, another thing which is important to remember is the storage account. Okay, so storage, every function app that you are creating has to have a storage account. You could create a new, or you can use an existing one, but you have to have the storage account. Without that storage account, you cannot really create that function app there. So I'm going to let it create this new storage account, which is the demo storage account it is creating. And then you have to choose your operating system. Now, depending on, again, what runtime stack you have, you might choose one over the other, whether you want to go for Linux or you want to go for Windows. For .NET, Windows is better option. So I'm going to go with Windows. But if I was to do Python, I might go with Linux. Okay. So you have to decide how you are doing the development, and then what's the best operating system according to that. So I'm going to go with Windows here. And then we have got these plan types. Now for this demo, I'm just going to talk high level about this plan, because we are going to go into the details and understand what these plans really mean. So when you create a function app, you are obviously, it is serverless, but you have to, there is background, there are some servers which are being created. Now, how they'll be created and what sort of infrastructure you get is decided by these plans. Now, if I go with consumption, it's truly serverless. So that means that whenever your requests are running, the infrastructure will be provisioned, and when there are no requests, there won't be any infrastructure. Then there are other options like premium and app service plan, where you can go and you can say, okay, I want to keep my server infrastructure warm, so maybe I want to go for premium or app service plan in that scenario. In case of serverless, it's basically, because if let's say that you didn't have any requests for a week, then there's no infrastructure. So the first request that comes up after 1 week, that's sort of cold start. So your infrastructure, so initially you'll see there is a slowness. And then after that, once everything is ready, then you will see that your requests are being processed really fast. Okay, so that's basically the concept here. So we have to choose the plan. Then we can go into monitoring. So if you want to turn on the monitoring for your functions, you can make use of application insights and turn on the monitoring, which will track all your requests that are coming in. And if you had any, let's say, errors or anything, you can go to application insights and you can then debug from there. And then we, if you want to add the tags, you add the tags, and then we review and create. And then that is creating our function app. Okay, so what this has done is it's basically created the function app, but we don't have the functions yet. So we need to wait for this to be created, and then we are going to add the code, which is where our function app is going to be. So functions are going to be.
So you've created the resource, and then your functions or the code sits within the resource, which is the function app.
Yeah, that's correct.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have got our function app created. So let's go to the resource. Now what we have got here is the host. Okay, so this is where your functions are going to run. So this is the instance of a function app. And then in that, we need to add a function. So far, we really don't have any functions here yet. So I can go to functions here. And then I want to add, so I can click here, add. Now I have got different options for the development. I can do the development in portal itself. Now, if you have got something simple that you want to do, if you are creating something small and you don't want to go through the whole process of creating that whole project and do the development and deployment of that, then you could just do it with the portal. So this is for like your, if you want to try out or demo something, okay? So you can do it with the portal. The other options you have is you could go with the tools. So you can go with Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, or you can use any editor plus the core tools that we talked about earlier. So use those and you create. So first we are going to do it in the portal itself, and I'm going to create HTTP trigger. Now here under select template, you can see that we have got lots of different options here for templates. Like there's HTTP trigger, timer trigger, then we have got the queue storage, we have got the service bus, blob storage, event hub, Cosmos DB. So lots of different triggers are available. So we can choose here, let's say I want to choose HTTP trigger, and I'm going to scroll down, and here I want to give a name. Okay. So I'm going to call it demo HTTP trigger. That's my function name. And then we have to choose the authorization level for the function. Now, authorization level means that whenever I'm making this HTTP request, do I need to authorize myself, or is it going to be anonymous call? In some situations, you might want to do anonymous call, and there you can say anonymous. Okay. So what you are doing here is giving ability to someone to call this function anonymously. Other options you have is function and admin. Obviously, they are more secure options. So with the function, what you do is, if you have said that your authorization is level is function, then you have to pass a key, which is a function key. The other option you have is admin, which means you're going to pass the admin key, and then only you will be able to call the function. Okay, so those are different options. So I'm going to go with function here, and I want to click add. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a bare bone function for me, which is a sample function. So we'll look at that sample function and then we'll see how we can edit. So once the function is created, you have got here this option, which is code and test. Okay, click on that. Now, because we created in the portal itself, we get this ability to write the code in the portal itself. So this one, because I created .NET, it has created this function with the C# script, and I can edit the script here and you can see the code. So what this is doing basically is we have got here, it's calling for this HTTP request. So it's taking this HTTP request and then looking for this name here in the query string. If there is no name in the query string, it'll look for the name in the request body. So whenever you are making the HTTP call, are you passing the request in the body? If you have, then what this is going to do is it's going to post this response. So if it finds that there's a name, then it's going to post this response. If not, then it's going to show you this response. Okay, so that's what this function is doing. So really basic function. Now I can test the function in the portal itself. So I can go to test and run, which opens up this function. And here I have got ability to add query parameters. I have can header, or I can even add bodies. So here I'm going to say name is, let's say, Janhavi, and then I'm going to run this. So when I run it, because I'm passing the name in the request body, it will give me that message here that hello Janhavi, and then this HTTP function was triggered. Okay. Now, if I did not pass my name, so let's keep it an empty body, and then we can run that.
John, the alternate output, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so we'll see that alternate output here. Okay, so it says that you need to pass a name. Now, another way I can test this, because this is HTTP triggered function, another way to test it is I can say that I want to get the function URL. Okay, and here we have the URL. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to put it in a notepad first to show you what we have in the request. So here you can see this one is our function app name, and then Azure Websites.net, and then API, and then this basically is the function itself. Okay, so that's the function name. And we said that we want to make use of the function based authorization. So here we have got this key. Okay, so that's basically the trigger. Okay, so we have got the code. That's the authorization key that we are going to use. Now this thing, I can just directly put it here in my browser, and I'm going to say here name equal to, again, Janhavi, and then I'm going to call. So now, again, you can see that I have got here the message. So it's saying that, hello, Janhavi, and the function execution was done successfully. So that's another way for you to test your function, which is the HTTP triggered function that we have created. So that's simple it is to create your function from the Azure portal. But it's not going to last. This kind of mechanism, it's not for you to do like a large function development. Maybe you want to write multiple functions and you want to do some complex coding and things. This is not going to sustainable. So the other options we have is we make use of the tools like Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, or you can make use of the core tools. So we'll make use of the core tools for that. Okay, so let's close this and I'm going to open up my terminal window. And in the terminal window, I have already installed the core tools. Okay, so because I have installed the core tools, I can just start my function development from here. So I need to say func init and give a function name. So I'm going to call it, let's say, round. So that's my function name. And here it's going to ask me for the runtime. So I'm going to go with .NET again. So I'm going to go here, .NET. And once this is done, we have to create the function. So what this is doing is it's creating the required project for us. And any extensions that we need to add, it will create the JSON file for that. So once we add the extension, they'll go into that JSON file. So it has created the product, the basic project. So let's change the directory. So RoundUp demo 2. And let's see what are the files here. So I'm just going to run that and see the files here. So what we have is it creates you a host.json file, which is a file which is used for all settings which will be applied to different functions that you have got. Then you have got the local settings files in case you want to add any connection strings or anything, then you have got that. And you have your project file. Okay, so you have got that. Now I'm going to just say code and dot because I have got Visual Studio Code installed. If I do this, then this is going to open up my Visual Studio Code. Okay, and it opens up that project here. So you can see I have got my project here. Now, rest of the things, I could do it from that command line interface, or I can open my terminal inside the Visual Studio Code and I can do it from there. So what we want to do next is we want to create that actual function. So let's say I want to create a new function. So I'm going to go here and select a template. Now, again, if I want to do HTTP trigger, so I want to say HTTP trigger here. And then I want to give it a name. And the name I want to give is, let's say, my HTTP. Okay, so that's the name. Close that. So you can see here that we already have got this function file. Okay, so this was created. And then let's just remove this. And in here, then it's the same sample code that is created in the portal as well. So demo code that we had, we have got the HTTP request being called because this is HTTP triggered function. And then again, it's taking the name. So sample code, we can then replace that with whatever our own code we want to add in here. And then we can just deploy directly from here. Now, there are different options for deployment. And I'll talk about those later, but at high level, like in Visual Studio Code, you have got these tools which you can make use of, which are Azure Code tools. So this is basically an extension that you need to install with Visual Studio Code, and that will allow you to do the deployments directly from the Visual Studio Code. So this is one option for you to create your functions. Now, another option you have is you can make use of Visual Studio itself. So here I have got this Visual Studio. I have already created one function app here, but there is a project that you can make use of. Let's say I want to go new here and new project. And the project that I want to choose here is Azure Functions project. So I can then create that function using Visual Studio Code. So here I can choose this, and then I can create the functions using Visual Studio Code, and then I can add all my functions there, and I can then deploy directly from Visual Studio. So those are our different options for creating that function. Okay. Now we saw how we can create the function app, but we want to understand some key concepts. Like we created a function app and there's few terms we have been using like function app, functions, and what does that really mean? So let's just go into the details of what those key concepts are. Now function app is a unit of development and deployment. Okay. So that function app can have many functions. And a function app, it provides you an execution context in Azure in which your function is going to run. So the function app, it's comprised of one or more individual functions which are managed and deployed and scaled together. So all the function in the function app, they share the same pricing plan. Their deployment method is going to be same. Their runtime version is going to be same. So think of function app as a way for you to organize and collectively manage your functions. Okay, so that's your function app. Then inside the function app, you have got these multiple functions. So this is where your code is running in response to some kind of event. So these functions that you have got to respond to some kind of an event, they have got a trigger. Okay. So functions, it has got a trigger which causes the function to execute. Now function must have exactly one trigger. And triggers, they can have associated data, which is often provided as a payload to your function. Okay. Then functions also have something called as bindings. Now, these bindings is a way for you to declaratively connect another resources. So let's say, for example, you have got your functions and you want to, let's say, upload data to Cosmos DB, or you want to create some kind of um, you have got a storage blob storage and you created a file, and from that file you want to create some record somewhere else. So you want to have that binding, you want to pass the data. So for that you make use of binding. So these bindings can be connected as input, or they can be connected as output binding, or they can be both. Okay, so data from the bindings is provided to function as your parameters. So you can mix and match different types of bindings to suit your needs there. But these bindings, they are optional. You don't need to have them, like it's not mandatory. Like in the demo, we didn't create any binding. We just had the trigger, no bindings. But these are optional. So you don't have to have them. If you need to have them, then you can have, and you can have multiple of those as well. So it doesn't have to be one. You can create multiple bindings in one function if required. So these triggers and bindings, they let you avoid any kind of hard coding that you want for other services access. Okay, so you don't need to hard code there. Your function receives the data in function parameters, and then it's going to send the data by using the return value of the function.
Okay.
Now, all the triggers and binding, they have a property which is called as direction property. So your function will have that direction. Now, the direction could be in, out, or it can be in, out. Now, if you are writing a trigger, then that trigger is always going to have the direction in, because it's going to trigger, right? With the binding, your direction can be either in or it can be out, or sometimes some of the bindings, they also allow you to do in out, which is they can be acting as input and they can be acting as output as well. So you have got those different options there. So if you think about, I
was going to say, I think I've got a demo that I usually show, and it's got a couple of functions, and we import an image and then resize the image, and then using bindings, we put that resized image into a storage account. So it's actually, that's a interesting looking at the way that's referenced.
So if we think about then anatomy of this Azure functions, you have got two important pieces in the function. You have got your code, which is where you have got all the magic that's happening. And then you have got configuration, which is part of that function.json file. So in the function.json file, what you're going to do is you're going to define the function's trigger, and you're going to define the binding. So here in this section, what you are going to define is these two things. And you're going to then tell your function that, okay, I'm going to connect to these different resources and do the magic on those resources there. So that's how your anatomy of your Azure function is. Now let's have a look at a demo of bindings. How can we add these bindings? And depending on the language you choose, it's going to be some different ways. Okay, so here I have got one demo of PowerShell. So I've got this function which is written in PowerShell, and I have got bindings here. So I have got Cosmos DB, which is my output binding, and then the trigger here is the queue storage. Now to set up the binding, I need to go to this integration option. Now this one I have created in Azure portal, this particular function. So in the trigger, I have got this queue storage. And if I scroll down here, you can see here we have got these outputs. Okay. So here I have got Cosmos DB. I can add multiple outputs if I want, but when I click on the Cosmos DB, it's going to show me here the information about what that binding is about. So Cosmos DB, then the document that I'm going to create in Cosmos DB, the database name, and the collection in Cosmos DB. So I have got all these, and I have created a connection string in the configuration. So I picked that up, and that's how I set up my output binding here. And if I want to set input bindings, then I can go add input here, and I can set up my input bindings here. And there's these different binding types that you can choose from, and then you can set up that input binding. So that's how you set up the binding. Yeah, so we have got these bindings. Now you can look at the code here. In the code, I'm not really doing much. I'm just saying that I want to send that information to Cosmos DB, and that's about it. And then we add this message to the queue, and then we have got the message going into the Cosmos DB there using this particular code. So what I'm going to do is on the side in another tab, I'm going to open up my queue storage, and then we are going to post there the message. And here we have got our code. So you can see here, this is all I need to write. So push output binding and then name of the binding, which is the name we have defined in that integration window. And then here we are passing this particular value, which is coming from the trigger. Okay, that's all I'm doing. And here I have got this trigger metadata and then the queue item, which is the trigger queue itself. So from the queue, we are getting that item, and then from there, we're passing that data to Cosmos DB. So let's go to the queue storage, and I'm going to go in another tab here, and let's open up my storage account. So here I have got this storage account. Now in the storage account, I've got these queues. And in here, we have got this queue, which is where we are going to add that message. So I'm going to add this message here. And I have created some bunch of data already for me to use. So I'm going to get that. And I am going to enter in here. Okay. And let's change this to 1 day. And then click OK. So now we have added this queue here, queue message. Now in our Azure function, we have got the code. Now we want to see whether the function has run. So I'm going to come out of this and go to the overview tab, and you can see there is a spike here. That means that something's happened. Now we want to check our Cosmos DB. So I'm going to go to the portal main home, and I want my Cosmos DB. So I'm going to go Cosmos. And this is my Cosmos DB database here. So let's go into the data explorer. And I have got this EMP data was the collection that we use. So we have to check if there is any data here. And we can see that I had one record from yesterday, which was this, which I was testing. So John Doe, but this one is the one that we added, which is John Henry. We can confirm again here. So John Henry 1. So same thing. So we have got that data coming up here. So to add this record, I didn't really do much of a coding. All I did was one liner, and then I'm able to add this data to using this output binding. So this is how you do it in PowerShell. If you had any other language, then there is just one different way to do it. So this is my C# code, and I can add my output binding here because this is a compiled code. I don't really add it in the functions or JSON. I add it in here, and then then the function knows that that's the output binding. And all I'm doing then is I'm adding the data to Cosmos DB by this one line, and that's about it.
Okay.
So that's how the bindings work in Azure Functions.
That's nice. That's really cool. And I think even watching what you're doing and thinking out loud, even with things like logic apps, for those who used that before, maybe that's another session we can do. You can integrate functions in there as well. So really, the world is your oyster. You can really do anything with function apps. I like seeing PowerShell in there as well. That's my obviously I'm not a
Yeah,
developer,
I
I'm more
thought
an
so.
infrastructure
I thought you
person.
would like it. That's why.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, I think thank you very much for today, Janhavi. I know we had a couple other topics you wanted to cover, but we've sort of reached the end of this particular video. So maybe if you're okay, you can come back and talk to us about, I think it was hosting plans and scaling and the costs of Azure Functions in a separate video. And
Yeah.
that'd be great. And I believe you also got another topic called, well, you're going to talk about durable functions as well. So what we'll do is we'll get those recorded and we'll get those on the channel in the coming weeks. And once they're up, we'll also put them in a link to the end of this particular video once they're inside the channel. But thank you very much for joining us, Janhavi. Really appreciate you taking out the time today.
Thanks for having me, George. And I really enjoyed showing you the cool stuff in Azure Functions.
Yeah, definitely. It was great. And for everyone else, we got a bunch of different topics coming up over the coming weeks. We got some topics on bicep. We got a few topics on GitHub, so not sort of specifically Microsoft related, and GitHub and GitHub Actions and a few other things, and lots of other cool things that we'll have coming through. So hope you enjoyed the first video. Hope you're going to enjoy what we produce on this channel, and really look forward to bringing some of those sessions to you. And if you enjoyed the sessions today, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. Click on the little bell icons wherever they are, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.